Johnson, you are Melvin Lynn Johnson Jr. You're a fourth felony offender. This is the second time that you've been billed as an habitual offender for armed robbery. You were sentenced on February 1st, 2005. You received a 70-year sentence, and your parole date is December 31st, 2022. You're not eligible for good time, and your full term date is December 29th, 2072. Is that information correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Johnson, I'm going to allow Warden Goodwin to make a statement before I start. And he's going to tell us about things that happened this weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. I'm not, I know Melvin got a write-up this weekend as far as Rule 3 defiance from Captain Savage, I believe. It happened right after visitation or during visitation or something like that.
I was late for visitation and
Okay,
I got ready for that.
It was during the visitation process, and I haven't seen the write-up, Mr. Roche. I know he got placed in segregation on Saturday, investigative segregation. He has not had his hearing yet before the due process disciplinary committee yet. That's scheduled, docketed for today, but he's up here for his parole board hearing today. So he is currently in investigative segregation pending the outcome of a rule violation report for Rule 3 defiance.
Now, Mr. Johnson, I'm going to make this clear to you. We're going to have this hearing today, but we're not going to consider the disciplinary write-up, number 3 for defiance that occurred this weekend. That will not be a part of this hearing. It will not be considered. Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Johnson, your case has been assigned to me, and I'm going to read some information, and you tell me if this information is correct or not. And by the way, happy birthday. Tomorrow is your 53rd birthday, am I correct?
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, you are a fourth felony offender, approximately 18 or 19 adult arrests, an extensive criminal history, a history of violent offenses. Tell me about the programs that you've completed in the last 20 years. What programs have you completed?
Anger management, victim awareness, substance abuse. At the stated moment, I was in reentry. I go to a lot of Bible, a lot of biblical study I've done. Dr. Tony Evans in Dallas, and
Have you taken $100 pre-release?
excuse me.
Have you taken?
I've just started recently, pre-release.
Okay. What is your job at the facility?
Helping others try to get themselves together. They don't have a field line at the time.
What is your job?
They don't have the field line at the time, so I just pretty much try to assist other people with the legal problems, you know.
Okay. Now, let me inform you that you have a lot of opposition to your early release. The judge is opposed. The DA's office is adamantly opposed and submitted a statement in opposition. The sheriff's office is opposed. The chief of police is opposed. According to my record, you don't have a GED, and tell me why you don't have a GED.
Well, In all honesty, I just, with June 15th, I enlisted to get a GED. I just haven't been called to school. But throughout my incarceration time, I've been fighting. I've just been fighting to get my problem dealt with, and that's dealing with this courthouse. In all honesty,
I know, but what I'm saying is,
Dealing with the what?
I mean, what I
dealing
say
with
that.
what?
Excuse me.
You were dealing with what?
The court, the judicial
The
system,
court.
appeal process.
The court.
I was trying to
Okay,
learn litigation.
oh,
Right.
you were fighting with the legal
Oh, okay.
Right.
system.
Right.
Okay. Now, another reason why you don't have enough program, Mr. Johnson, you've been in segregated quarters, locked down, working cell block 25 times,
Right.
20 years. And if you're in segregated quarters, locked down, working cell block, you can't take classes.
Okay, can I speak?
No, I'm talking right now,
All right, going on.
okay? You have a poor supervision history. You've been on supervision a couple of times and been revoked. You have over 70 disciplinary write-ups and 20 years of incarceration. The last one that we're going to count is 13 months ago, and it was for fighting. What was that about?
The guy was he came to my assigned quarters where I sleep at, and I had to defend myself. He was out of his quarters, he came to mine, and I knew he was gonna do something. So it was like, get away from me. You're up on a lot of medication dealing with your mind, and right now I know you got that crazy strength, and you're too close. Would you please get out my aisle? He didn't, so I helped him.
Now, Mr. Johnson, that was only 13 months ago.
Right.
And for me, you have to have a longer period of time with no disciplinary write-ups. But let me tell you, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but every year since 2004, you have a disciplinary write-up. In 2021, you had the fighting. You had 4 disciplinary write-ups in 2020. You had 2 in 2019. You had 5 in 2018. You had 6 in 2017. You had 2 in 2016. You had an aggravated fight in 2014. You had 5 disciplinary write-ups in 2013 and 1 in 2012. You had 9 disciplinary write-ups in 2011 and 6 in 2010. So 12 years, you've had multiple write-ups every year. You had at least 12 aggravated sex offenses, 5 aggravated fights, which tells me, aggravated fight tells me that you were the aggressor. You had 1 ordinary fight. You had 24 aggravated disobedience and 20 defiance. Mr. Johnson, you need to get yourself straight. You have 70-year sentence, and if you continue down the path that you've gone the last 20 years, you will serve all 70 years, or you will die incarcerated. So make up your mind this morning as you deal with your present situation. Make up your mind that you're going to follow the rules, abide by Warden Goodwin's policies, and maybe in a couple of years with no write-ups, good programs, and you can apply again and be reconsidered. But no one with a disciplinary record such as yours will ever get out of prison. You understand?
Of course. I actually agree.
Ward Goodwin,
I would like to say this.
Ward Goodwin, would you like to make any additional comments?
Mr. Roche, I just would like to point out, you mentioned those write-ups, and he has had quite a few, and his conduct record isn't that great, but he has shown a lot of improvement since 2019. I think in last year, he only received one write-up in the entire year of 2021, which was that fight you referenced, which was a remarkable improvement. He's gotten involved in programming lately. He completed the Cage Your Age program in May of this year, and he's currently enrolled in victim awareness, substance abuse, and our pre-release reentry 100-hour pre-release program, and he's currently enrolled in those things. So I would like to point out that his record has shown a good improvement over the last couple of years versus his previous incarceration. He's only been away about 5 years now, and he has requested, like he said, he's requested to start school as well. So he's going to be working on his educational high school diploma. He's going to be trying to get that over the next period of time. So he has shown improvement over the last couple of years. I just like to point that out.
Or Mr. Johnson, look like you turned the corner. Look like you turned the corner and you're on your way back. I want you to enroll in the GED program, enroll in every good time program that you need, and maybe in a year or two, you can reapply, come back right up free, working on your GED, taking all the good time programs you can in the next 2 years, and then maybe, just maybe, by the time you 55th birthday, you'll be eligible for release. Okay?
Do I get a chance to say something?
Yes.
I agree with everything you're saying. I don't even think I deserve parole with my record, like you stated. And I have done a lot of times in cells. And I actually did that so I can get away from all the slavery, labor, and learn law. Isolate myself, I can learn my problem. And in the course of that, still a bunch of stuff came at me where I have to still stand as a man in this prison. So I understand my write-ups and this and that. I'm not trying to say who right, who wrong. I understand I don't deserve this parole here. But I will say this here. It's hard, or harder than you might have can imagine with my past, with the mindset a person would automatically have just knowing about my past or what they perceive as my demeanor is supposed to be about. You know, yeah, I might have a negative energy, but at the same time, I'm tired. I came in here, I did so many years back to back to back doing time, and I'm tired. But I'm mad at me, not nobody else. I'm mad at me. You know, I'm not mad at security. I'm not mad at inmates. I'm mad at me because I kept putting myself in this place to where somebody can tell me how loud I can talk, when I can eat, when I can take a shower. I've done this. So I can respect being denied. I can respect not being ready. But at the same token, do I really get a fair shot at being ready? I mean, just think, will I really just volunteer to be locked up 2 days before my hearing? I mean, my record, yeah. But me just talking to you now, did that really make sense? 2 days, it's up on investigation, nothing has been ruled, and it's not important. But 2 days before my hearing, after a whole year of filing it without a write-up, out of 20 years, filing certificates out of 20 years, 1 year, I finally got in things in order, and 2 days before my hearing, I lose it? And so this gonna start off that other 1 to 2 years that you're speaking about. This gonna start that off with this right up on down because it is what it is. They said what it is, so be it. So I'm finna start this cycle all over again where I'm the bad guy. I'm not finna get back in re-entry. They're not finna put me in no school. Be over there playing this prison game again, and you lose. That's the true essence of everything. But I thank you for allowing me to come anyway, in spite of all this handcuffs and all. I thank you, and I appreciate. I didn't know my record was that messed up, but it is. You know, it's been 20 years. I want to keep them tab. All I know is that if something came to me, especially in Angola, you either deal with it, it's gonna deal with you. Here, and even though I was here 30 plus years ago, this place have actually changed. And when I finally made it to population, because when I got shipped, I was trying to get back there and go. And that's sad because I'm from Shreveport, right down the street. But I was trying to get back there and go because I didn't understand this place. And now that I finally got to dormitory and got to really chance to just look at things, like I told Ms. Wells and Ms. Robinson, the setup kind of makes sense now. It can help you get back in a better way and better yourself. It do. But I know I'm not ready. So maybe the next round, if I so happen to make it back to dormitory in time, and you know, we'll see then. But I thank y'all for y'all time, and I'm not in denial of nothing. If I was on the board in one of y'all seats, I wouldn't give it to me. So it is what it is.
Mr. Johnson, I really, really understand exactly where you're coming from. And I appreciate your statement, but your main objective is to be released and to go out and live a productive
Right.
life and be an asset to your community. And the only way that you can do that is follow the directions of Warden Goodwin and his staff. Do as much as you can. Get into good time programs, and Warden Goodwin is getting into those programs, getting 100 hours pre-release. You're taking some programs, he's lining some programs up for you. Even if you don't complete the GED, by next time we see you, you need to start on the GED. So when you are released, you'll have a GED, and your employment opportunities will be enhanced because you have that GED. So I really want you to be successful. The only way that you're going to do that is stay away from negative situations and write-ups, and take as many classes as you can, and hopefully, as I said before, by your 55th birthday, things will change and you'll get a favorable result from the pardon of the parole board. If you need help, I'm almost sure Warden Goodwin and the staff will assist you. Just take advantage of everything that's afforded to you. I know it's a negative situation, but you have to take the lemon and make some lemonade. Okay?
All right.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Wise, Mr. Freeman. Would you like to make a brief statement, Mr. Johnson?
Well, I want to thank you for telling me happy birthday, and that I'm getting old. I'm tired of getting old for nothing. And my kids, I watched them grow up in prison, and they finished on time. And I would like to have my degree. I went all the way to the level and messed up. I would like to have my degree. And my parents, they trying to stay alive just to see me out, and that mean a lot. But for the wrong I've done others, I have a problem with that. When I'm wrong, I don't have a problem with being wrong if it's shown to me. And a lot of my actions are wrong. And hopefully I can get back to some class and do something different. I like I said, I like how the new setup or Melvin got here. It's interesting. And maybe I can get back to it. I can do something different, get a different result the next round.
I know you can. I know you can. Let today be the new start of a new way of doing things. Take the lemons and make lemonade. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson, based upon opposition from law enforcement and the rest of the community, our legal community, and a general disciplinary conduct that's unacceptable, I deny your request. Ms. Wise.
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Johnson, I too wish you happy birthday. I put it on the top of my notes when I was reviewing your file last night. I believe you when you said you're tired. I believe you. And I believe you're gonna make the changes. You're gonna take the classes and you're gonna be a different you because you're gonna want to say something back, but you ain't gonna say nothing back. You're just gonna deal with situations differently. And like you said, we haven't done time, so we don't know. But I do know life is hard out here too. I still got to make the choices too when the police officer pulling me over. I got to make choices too to stay out. It's the same thing. And get that practice now. But my vote is the same for the same reasons. Again, I say I wish you well, and I believe you. I believe you are tired, and when you get tired, that's when you're gonna make some changes. And I put in my notes, I urge you to reapply when you're eligible, based on the warden's positive comment.
Thank you, Ms. Wise.
I agree with both of my colleagues and look forward to seeing you in a year or two. And if you do the things we say, I think you'll be out, be home.
Mrs. Johnson, I know you can do it. Keep a positive attitude, a positive demeanor, take the program, enroll in GED, and you might get a different result next time. You have received 3 votes to deny your request. Your request for early release has been denied. You have a good day.
Y'all too.
Thank you, Mr. Roach.
I'm a little surprised and confused that Mr. Roche said, well, we're not going to take this write-up into account. And maybe because it's still under investigation and didn't go through court, maybe it was because Mr. Roche just knew that he knew he was going to get denied, but wanted to give him hope. I'm not sure, but we have seen Mr. Roche just shut down hearings before they even happen. I try to look at this both ways. He listening to what he said on his little monologue and looking at it from both sides. In one sense, he said, I'm just blaming it on myself. I'm not blaming it on anyone else. But I'm tired and it's kind of so unfair that I got to write up 2 days before my hearing. And why would I want to do that? But on the other side of it, it still sounds like kind of, to me, just sounded like he was still blaming other people and his record's awful. We have seen so many hearings with people who don't have any write-ups, which is always bizarre to me how that's possible, or very few write-ups, and they get a lot done. And meanwhile, he's been in segregation for so much of his prison sentence, it doesn't seem he's done anything. On that note, it was kind of interesting how Mr. Roche starts off going through how terrible his record is, and then sums it up by finally saying, and you don't have a GED. And I just cracked out laughing because it just seems so out of place. It's like, Really? You got all of these aggravated write-ups, and then it's like, and you don't have a GED. But you know, it's what they care about here. And 25 times, and like he's you know, shows up to his parole hearing in handcuffs. He has it's he says that you know, he actually goes on a monologue about how he intentionally goes into segregating part of the prison so that he doesn't have to involve himself in the, what were the exact words that he used? The exact words that he used. I want to quote it accurately. I put myself in isolation. Intentionally to get away from all that slave-related labor. Now, we have seen other people write about this, and it it is worth talking about. But that inmates are sent into these prisons and paid like a few cents an hour to work, but at the same time, they are getting sentenced to hard labor, and it's certainly not the hard labor that probably was happening 100 years ago at Angola. But I I can't imagine how some, like, what are you supposed to do? You're going to get sentenced to Angola and then just sit around and watch TV and not, like, I don't understand what the expectation is. And the idea that he would say that at his parole hearing that he intentionally gets locked up so he doesn't need to work. And Mr. O'Shea actually answers, I totally understand where you're coming from, was a surprise to me. I'm surprised he didn't get, I could have seen very easily that him getting reprimanded by the board. I really could have. So a little caught off guard. And he's still locked up. You know, this hearing happened in September 2022. And they kept saying by your 55th birthday, maybe you can get out. And he's 54. He would have recently turned 54, is my understanding. So he's got like another year. We'll see him up for parole maybe in the next few months, assuming he hasn't had any other write-ups. But I couldn't imagine him actually getting out and being successful. It just, it didn't seem that he's done anything right. Frankly, the whole hearing was a little shocking to me. Anyways, enough of my blabbering. Let's talk about his crime in 2002. So shortly before 10 a.m. on December 31st, the House of Brass, a clothing and jewelry store in Shreveport, was robbed by a masked individual who was carrying a shotgun and wearing dark clothing. Cheryl Pollard, a store employee, testified that she was near the front of the store when she looked up and saw a person wearing a mask like the one used in the movie Scream. Are you serious? You know, we see that in movies, and I'm sorry, but you're going to go into a store wearing a Scream mask, all black, and carrying a shotgun. Yeah, you know, like, because it's not scary enough that you would wear maybe a regular mask. It's not scary enough that you have a shotgun. I mean, this is, the individual pointed a shotgun at her face and told her to cooperate so that no one would get hurt. You know, the more I read this, the more angry I get at how his parole hearing went. He then ordered Pollard and the two other employees to face the wall. The robber demanded money, and Pollard handed him an amount of approximately $180 to $190 in the cash register. Wow, great score, man. At that point, a female customer entered the store, and the assailant ordered her to get down. When the customer hesitated, the assailant hit her with his elbow. Yeah. I mean, and look at the guy's prison record. I really am surprised that they would even but I guess because he served so much of his sentence. No, he has a long sentence. I don't know. It was a bizarre hearing to me. The robber then told Pollard that he wanted more money, and she went to the cash register in another part of the store, but he could not open the cash drawer. She ran towards the back of the store and left the building with 3 other employees. They ran next door to call 911. At trial, Pollard identified the mask and shotgun as items used during the robbery. A co-worker, Beverly Martin, testified that when she heard the robber yelling, she ran to the back of the store and told another employee to call the police. Martin said Pollard, who ran to the back area, was hysterical and was concerned about getting more money for the robber to keep him from killing anyone. Martin said that she told the others they should leave and that the police were driving up as they went next door. Stephanie Woods, the store manager, testified that she was in the accountant's office near the back of the store when she heard a male yelling and demanding money. Woods stated that the accountant called 911 and that they waited inside several minutes until the police arrived. Woods testified that the store opened every morning with $200 in the cash register. Michael, an officer with the Shreveport Police Department, testified that he and other officers arrived at the scene of the robbery within 2 to 3 minutes and set up a perimeter around the store. Wow, great reaction time. Acting on information from Detective Oyster, the robber had just gone over the cinder block wall approximately 75 feet behind the store. Gribber climbed the top of the wall and looked over. He saw a black man lying on the ground wearing a black coat and holding a shotgun by his side. Gribber stated that his gun was pointed at the suspect, who aimed the shotgun at him. Gribber jumped down and shouted "gun" to warn the other officers. Wow, he's lucky he didn't get blasted. I mean, the cop, but also I'm talking about Melvin. Robert, the officer who apprehended the suspect, testified that he was walking to Albert Street to set up a perimeter when he saw a man. Hey, isn't that? Oh no, it's Albert. Okay. When he saw a man who matched the suspect's description run from between 2 houses, Officer Rivet pursued the fleeing suspect, who ran out of the sight around the corner of the house. Rivet entered the yard of the residence looking around and found the suspect lying on the ground near the house with his hands underneath him. He pulled the suspect away from the house and observed a scream mask and shotgun on the ground where the suspect had been hiding. Rivet identified the defendant in court as the person taken into custody and testified that the mask and shotgun were those found on the ground. Shreveport police officer Paul Vines testified that when he arrived, Rivet and another officer were trying to subdue the defendant. Officer Vines handcuffed the defendant and conducted a pat-down in search of his person. Vines stated that he found $188 in cash and a set of keys in the defendant's coat pocket. He also saw a scream mask. Can you imagine? It's like, I'm going to go rob a store, and then you get a 70-year sentence. It's like, was it really worth it? $200, man. Tom Oyster, a Shreveport police investigator, was driving past the store when the robbery was reported. He turned into the store's driveway. Several women came out of the building and ran past him to a business next door. He testified that another woman then ran out and told him that the armed robber wore a mask and was still inside. Oyster stated that one of the officers around the building reported that the suspect was running out of the back door and dressed in black carrier shotgun. Okay, they're just going through all the different eyewitness statements. This was done at like 9 in the morning. Imagine you show up to work, and then a guy and a scream mask and a shotgun. It's like, come on, man. Did they even talk about this crime? I don't think they did, right? They never said, what did he do? Why did he do it? It was simply around his record and what he can do to do better in prison. And really, one of the worst records we've heard. I don't know why they were being so I mean, it's not a bad strategy to be nice, but it wasn't. I didn't hear that they were actually reprimanding him. It was more like, I understand. Very uncharacteristic of Mr. Richey. They didn't bring up the victims, if they oppose or not. I don't think I heard that. Okay, the judge weighed the credibility of the witnesses and validity of the evidence. The jury heard the defendant was apprehended within 9 minutes of the robbery in close proximity to the scene. What a total fail. I mean, who would rob a store anyways at like 9 in the morning? I mean, that just doesn't seem like a very clever obviously he wasn't thinking. This entire thing wasn't very well thought out. He was dressed in the same type of clothing that worn by the perpetrator. He's found possessing a shotgun, a mask, $108. Okay. I don't know what type of appeal did he actually think he had here. Why did he even go to trial? They didn't offer him any deal. In the present case, the record shows that during the preliminary examinations, officer testified that the gun and mask allegedly seized from the defendant had been sent to a crime lab, but the police had not yet received any results. In contrast, Oster testified that at trial the gun had not been dusted for fingerprints and the mask had never been sent to the crime lab. On examination, Oster acknowledged that he previously had testified that the mask and gun had been sent to the crime lab. Okay, so, it's not exactly a smoking gun. Thus, the jury was aware that the prior inconsistent statement made by the police officer. In addition, the jury heard another officer testify that the mask and gun found underneath the defendant's body at the time of his arrest, based on the testimony presented, the jury was able to evaluate the likelihood of the gun and mask being the defendant's. No, it's like he was just walking and he fell on it. Whoops, what do I have here? The defendant also seemed to contend that the existence of the perjury can be shown in the review of the police reports and the record. Defendants have the two officers listed. What's interesting is that he has other appeals that Richard shared, and we have one ruling that they denied his appeal in 2017, and they have another one in 2021. So here he is, 2021. That is just like they decided it June 29, 2021. So he's filing appeals even just like a year before this hearing. It seems still in denial that he's trying to get out of this offense. And I'm sorry, but this is like, out of all cases that we've seen, I don't understand how he thinks that he can get away with this. The appeal, like it's black and white what he did, and his appeals are ridiculous. There's nothing in it. It's like, well, the police officer said that he sent it to a lab and he didn't. Like, you were found with the shotgun and the mask on you. How can you explain that? So I think there's something wrong with him, Not that we needed, it's like we saw enough at this hearing, but he's still like blaming everyone else, which is just, it's like, I think we've heard Miss Y say this. Don't serve time, have time serve you, something like that. We do see inmates that do very well in prison and get the most out of it. They get degrees, they get skills, they join club, like they do so much. And he's done nothing. Conclusion: for the foregoing reasons, the defendant's armed robbery conviction is affirmed. The adjudication as a third felony offender is set aside, and the case is remanded to the district court for the purpose of reopening the habitual offender hearing to receive any available evidence regarding the voluntariness of the defendant's guilty plea. So I guess they're talking about if he's actually an habitual offender. But not to be a broken record, I was again quite confused about how this case went. But we'll see. Let's see if he actually can stay out of trouble, or if he's, when we have the hearing, we'll play it here. It'll be under the playlist, the return of. That's what the playlist is called, the return of. So when someone comes back for any given reason, and with that, I'll let you go.
All right, good afternoon.
All right, how y'all ladies and gentlemen doing?
Ken, would you please introduce yourself to us? Tell us your name and your DOC number.
Miss Klein. Miss Klein.
I want your name and DOC number.
Oh, Perry Taylor, 1025.
All right, let me introduce the parole panel to you. My name is Cheryl Renatza. Seated to my left is Mrs. Bonnie Jackson. To my right, Mr. Alvin Roche. Mr. Taylor, you are classified as a third felony offender. You're currently serving a 30-year sentence. You were sentenced in 2002 for possession with intent to distribute marijuana. You received a 30-year sentence, and then as a habitual offender, manufacturing marijuana, received a 30-year concurrent sentence, so it's a total of 30 years. Parole eligibility was March the 26th, 2008. Your good time date is May 13, 2030, and full term is September 25th, 2030. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Would you answer Mrs. Jackson's questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Taylor. My name is Bonnie Jackson. Your case has been assigned to me, so I'll start the questioning for the board. Are you having trouble hearing me?
A little bit.
Is it breaking up or is it just the volume?
It's just the volume.
All right. How old are you, Mr. Taylor?
I'm 61.
And how much time have you served on these charges?
22 years.
And your sentence was a total of 30 years. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Taylor, first, let's talk about the possessions with intent to distribute marijuana. Tell me about that. What happened in those cases?
Well, I was growing some marijuana. I had some plants in my girlfriend's trunk of her car, and I got pulled over by a city police officer, and they arrested me and charged me with cultivation and intent to distribute marijuana.
How many plants were you growing?
I had 5.
And where were they growing?
I was just planting them out by the river.
Okay. But you had some in the trunk too?
Ma'am?
You said you had some in the trunk.
Yes, ma'am. I had 5 plants in the trunk of the car, about knee high.
And you dug them up?
No, I was going to plant them.
Going to plant them. Did you have any already planted?
Yes, ma'am. I had a few of them. I took the police officers out there where I had them planted.
Okay.
When I got arrested.
So one count was for the ones in the trunk and the other count was for the ones you had planted out by the river. Is that what it was?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I was trying to figure that out.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Taylor, let's talk about some things that are kind of an issue. We're going to start with your criminal record.
Yes, ma'am. I've been a career criminal all my life, but
Right.
these 22 years changed my life.
Now we'll get to that. We'll see about that. But one of your convictions was for manslaughter.
Yes,
Tell
yes,
us
ma'am.
about that.
Well, when I was
How old were you when you committed the manslaughter?
well, I didn't get convicted until I was 21. The
How
crime,
old were you committed the crime?
well, the crime happened when I was a juvenile.
How old were you?
I say about 14 or 15.
So how does a 14 or 15-year-old come to take someone's life?
Oh, I was with my cousin when I went with my cousin, and he's the one that I got charged with before and doing after the fact of manslaughter.
Well, what happened is you were both pointing the finger at each other. He said
Yeah,
you did it, and you said he did it.
that's how I got 21 years, and I did 12 on it.
Who was killed?
I didn't even know his name. I'm sorry.
Why was he killed?
I didn't kill him. The person was already deceased when I went to help my fall partner. He was already deceased.
How did he die?
My fall partner said I drowned him, but I didn't drown him. He was already passed away when he picked me up in the van. I don't know.
The young man, I think the victim was 19 years old, and he died from drowning. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And your fall partner was your cousin, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And he said you drowned the young man.
I did not. I did not.
As a juvenile, or have you ever been charged with cruelty to animals?
Well, that
Yes or
happened a
no?
long time ago when I was
And
I was
that was in
12 years old.
1978. That was in 1978. You were charged with cruelty to an animal. What happened in that case?
Well, I dove in the river to get the dog, and I couldn't swim that good either. And I was trying to get it to the people that owned the dog, but and I didn't. The dog didn't die; it lived. But they still charged me to cruelty to an animal.
Well, two kids say they saw you holding the dog under the water, and when you left, they went to investigate, and they found their little black puppy in the place where you were holding something under the water, and they realized that you had drowned their puppy.
No, I don't. It didn't. I don't think it drowned it.
Well, you did.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, you've got a lot of crimes where you have either used violence or threatened violence.
Yes, ma'am.
Like in 72, you were just 11 years old, you threatened to kill somebody with a knife. And also in 72, you hit another boy on the school bus.
Yes, ma'am.
In 76, disturbing the peace by fighting. In 77, a neighbor complained that you had made threats over the phone, and you made comments to the effect that you would cut the person's guts out.
Yes, ma'am.
In 77, they sent you to a psychiatric hospital. Tell us about that. You
Yes,
remember
ma'am.
going to the psychiatric hospital in 77?
Yes, ma'am. They did. My mother and my father put me in, had me treated to Southeastern Hospital.
Do you know why? Do you know why?
Or they thought I was crazy.
How long did you stay at Southeast Louisiana Hospital? Do you remember about how long they kept you?
It's been so long. It was for a while. I don't know how long it was. It was for a good while though.
Was it months or weeks or years? Can you give me some idea?
Probably a couple, 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, it must have been months because that was in 77 in April. And in May of 78, you were charged with simple assault. You were threatening to beat somebody up at Sonic's.
Yes, ma'am.
So, are you being seen by anybody? Are you being treated for any mental health disorders right now?
Well,
Go ahead.
I did 17 years over at WCI, and I was trying to go to school, but they said I was special ed. I couldn't.
Well, I mean, you went to a psychiatric hospital for a while. Have you ever been on any kind of medicine or seen any psychiatrist during any of the times that you've been incarcerated?
No, ma'am. The only time I had psychiatric treatment when I was in Southeastern Hospital.
Okay. When did you serve 17 years in prison and for what?
On this jokes here, all together.
I got you.
I
got you.
Yes, ma'am. Like I say, I tried to go back to school, and then I went and seen the people. They said my education was special ed, and I couldn't perform.
Have you ever had a job outside the prison?
No, ma'am. I have epileptic seizures.
So you've never held a job before?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever tried to hold a job before?
I can't. I inherited seizures from my mom. It runs in their family, and I can't work. I can't work nothing.
Are you on seizure medication?
Yes, ma'am. I'm taking Tecatrol and Topamax and high blood pressure medicine.
Okay. Is that controlling your seizures?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
You've only had one write-up since you've been in prison this time. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That was in 2020 for contraband.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the contraband? What was that about? How did you get written up for contraband?
Lord,
What was the contraband?
See, when I have seizures, I lose my memory. I have memory loss when I have seizures.
Well, but you told me the medication was controlling your seizures.
Yeah, but sometimes, I can't control them, but
But
I do have them.
when's the last time you had a seizure, Mr. Taylor?
It's been about 6 months. It's been pretty good.
So you don't remember the write-up in 2020 where they found a shank?
Yeah, that's it.
What about it?
Like I say, This time in incarceration, the 22 years I've been locked up on this jokes here, I learned a lot. I learned my lesson about.
We'll talk about, did they find a shank in your cell?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
What was it?
Probably a nail or something scraped on the cement.
Scraped it on the cement?
Yes, ma'am.
What were you gonna do with it?
Well, for protection.
I see that you've only had 2 programs since you've been in prison.
Yes, ma'am.
A money class and another class that helps you with how you think and how you deal with situations. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever had any substance abuse classes?
Well, when I was over at WCI, I took the anger management. I was in the Parole, the JCs, and something else. I've been in a few of them though. I've been in art and crafts fest. What they call it, the cooking school.
Culinary?
Culinary arts.
Hmm? Have you ever had a job while you were in prison?
Yes, ma'am. I worked in the kitchen.
When was that?
That was in from 2005 to 2017.
Where were you incarcerated?
At WCI.
How long have you been where you are now?
3 years.
And you don't have a job there?
No, ma'am. The last job I had was at the work release at East Feliciana. I worked over there.
You were in work release?
Yes, ma'am.
Where were you working?
I worked part-time in the kitchen and part-time in the mechanics for about a year.
And what happened to that? Why did you stop doing that?
I put in for a transfer to go back to DOC. And they sent me here.
Why'd you do that?
The freedom was, it was too fast for me. I couldn't handle it being truthfully. I was locked up for 17 years, and then the classification officer at the prison sent me to work release, and I stayed. Like I said, I stayed there for a year. But it just got boring. I went back to. I put in for a transfer to go back to DOC, and they sent me here. I've been here ever since.
Only family you have is your father?
Yes, I got my father and my oldest brother.
Where does your oldest brother live?
He lives in Covington.
And one day when you get out of jail, where do you plan to live?
I want to get out and go take care of my dad. He's 90 years old. I want to go home and take care of him.
Well, How are you gonna take care of yourself? How are you gonna live? How are you gonna eat? How are you gonna,
Well, if I have to, I'm gonna go get me a job.
if you don't get a job, how would you live? I mean, you say if you have to, how do you plan to live without a job?
Yes, ma'am. Like I say, I've been, it's, 22 years I've been locked up. It's gonna take me a little while to get adjust to the free world.
Yeah. What
I've
happens,
been locked up all my life.
what happens when your dad passes away?
Well, I want to move out in the country and get away from the city life.
How are you gonna do that?
Maybe get one of my nephews and help me move out to the country. Help get some help from my nieces and nephews.
Is there anyone in the room with you, Mr. Taylor?
No, ma'am, I'm by myself.
All right, Mrs. Johnson,
Is there anything you'd like to say to us before we vote, sir?
Ma'am?
Is there anything you'd like to say to us or some closing statement?
Oh, yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. I've been in incarceration, like I say, almost 22 years. And my mom and dad used to tell me, you got to learn how to crawl before you can walk. And I had to find out the hard way. And I really appreciate it if y'all can help me. God, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think we're prepared to vote. Mrs. Jackson will be voting first.
all right, Mr. Taylor, you know, you said something that I think is probably the truest thing, that you've said. And that is that the world is too big for you. It's too much stress, it's too much pressure.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't think at this point you're ready to be released to the world. I think you do. The fact, you know, when I look at the fact that when you were out of jail, it was like one crime after another, but yet in the 22 years you've been incarcerated, you've only had one write-up. So that tells me that you need to have a structure around you. You need to be in a very controlled environment because you feel safe and comfortable. And you're able to follow the rules, but in the world, it's too much for you. Too much.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
And I think really, for your sake, and the sake of the community, you're really in the best place for you. And I think that you're not ready to get out. I think you know, when you get closer to the end of your sentence, you need to try to work with the prison transition team to help you find a place to live and, you know, maybe a halfway house or something, but you're not ready for the world. And so because of your extensive criminal history,
Yes, ma'am.
because you have some issues, you don't have a real transition plan. I just don't think you're ready. And so my vote today is to deny you and encourage you to, you know, look forward to the future when you will get out, work with the transition team and have something in place, because right now you're just not ready, okay?
Mr. Roach.
Madam Chairman, my vote is the same for the same reason.
And My vote today also is the same, Mr. Taylor, because I don't think you're ready, and you have an extensive violent history. So today, sorry, your parole's been denied. Now, did you have a question for us?
Yes, ma'am. I'm doing the best I can. So when I get another chance, another parole hearing, or what?
You have to apply for it. We'll send you some information that will tell you at what point you're eligible to reapply. You can reapply, but before you reapply, you need to have a better plan in place.
Well, like I say, I did the best I can. I can't
Okay,
do too
you
much.
ask the staff for help in helping you develop the plan. So,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor, that concludes today's proceedings. We're going to adjourn. It's 1:42 p.m. Good luck to you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else kind of getting the chills down their spine as that hearing unraveled, as the layers of that onion were peeled? I mean, I went through different feelings of emotion that were, at first I thought, this is a classic Louisiana case. He's growing some pot and they give him 30 years, right? I just got a phone call, but I think what I was saying before I paused it was it's like, oh, this is another classic Louisiana hearing, right? 30 years for growing pot. But then it comes out that, I mean, the record they run down, starting with drowning a puppy. Starts with drowning a puppy, and then it escalates to drowning a human being. Not for 1 second do I believe his story. How terrifying, how scary that we're sitting here, in my opinion, just my opinion, watching the classic poster child picture of a sociopathic serial killer. That, I know YouTube's not going to like that I said that, but I just don't care. That these are the crimes that we know about, right? I mean, his parents sent him to a psych ward. If I understand correctly, because when he first stated, when they spoke about the puppy, he said, oh, maybe I was 12 years old. And then they said, well, in 1978, and they sent him to the hospital. I think I got the dates right, in 77. And he had those other crimes. It was nonstop as a little kid. I mean, as a kid, a child. And what's kind of confusing to me is how he seemed to have, I guess he got that sentence where he served about half of it. He said he wasn't convicted until age of 21. I mean, I wish that we had more info on this, but there's nothing. So it seems he had gotten away with it from the age of 14 or 15, as he said, when he did the drowning, to the age of 21. Then he would have served some time, half his sentence, which he got a rather light sentence. I guess he took a plea deal. And then he gets out and they get him on the marijuana charges. And, it seems that, and Richard put this in his comments too, that the judge probably, you never know, because it's Louisiana and they like to give you long sentences for marijuana, but I think they probably threw the book at him because they looked at his career. Threatened to kill with a knife at the age. So he has He has a manslaughter conviction at 14 or 15, cruelty to an animal at 11, threatened to kill with knife at 16 years old, 17-year-old fighting 17-year-old, then cut someone's guts, threatened to cut someone's guts out. And what's quite fascinating too in this is that he has just one write-up and it's for that shank and it's someone, but maybe it's not so fascinating. It's kind of like these sociopaths are really good in prison, and it almost just, in my opinion, affirms that there's something wrong with them. They're like lizard humanoid people that somehow don't get write-ups. Now, why he had a shank is just knowing his history pretty scary. Now, maybe it was just for really, he was just scared and he had to defend himself. So he wanted to have it, or something more nefarious. I don't know. To me, the scariest thing about all of this is that he has a good time date of 2030. That is in 6 years. He's 62. 68 years old. That is a long time to figure out how to really hurt someone. That's not I mean, what? Wow. I mean, really, just think about that. Louisiana. Wherever he goes, those who he's living with really need to know the depth of his record and the facts of it. I mean, I'd be afraid to leave him near anyone where there's water, a bathtub. I mean, the whole thing is just mortifying to think that you can have people like this walking amongst us, whether it be in a halfway house, an old age home, wherever he's going to end up. I know he's not old enough to be, like, I'm not saying that age is to be in an old age home, but, at some point he'll end up there. Anyways, scary. But you got, not just say happy I'm not in Louisiana, right? Oof. Although I'm sure it's like this in every state. With that, I'll let you go.